Okay. So you get through that whole situation. And was your name Gangster at that point?
Yeah, I was Lil Gangsta at that point.
Lil Gangster. How'd you get that name?
My homie Stone, his name Killer Stone, he was with the D-Boys clique. And we was in juvenile jail. I was young and wild. And he used to be like, man, you Lil Gangsta. And I was like, I was like, oh, I like that. So I had made this little board, just let us paint and stuff. I was like, Mom, my new nickname, Lil Gangsta. I was happy he had gave him the name because he was well respected in the juvenile prison. And when he went home first in 93, and he was selling drugs in the project, and I had called home and I was like, man, he was like, man, just take the probation, come on home and hang out with me. So I went on and pled guilty and got out and started hanging out with him. And that's where the name come from, Lil Gangsta at first. About 94, I hadn't started spreading my wings out, so I took the Lil off and it was like Gangsta, no more Lil Gangsta, So that's how that came about.
Well, the Hot Boyz, the actual street crew.
Okay.
What year did that come together?
1994, we all started hanging together, but we knew each other from, like, me and Mosquito, we kind of grew up together. Sterling and all right, let me back up. Remember I told you about the guy that I came around the corner and he was choking my friend to try to take his crack rock, and I shot in the air as well. That's the next day, one of his friends tried to rob my friend again, and my friend shot him in the leg. And Sterling came looking for me and Mosquito. So we had got word that this older guy, he wasn't that older than us, but he had a reputation at the time for robbing and shooting. He had a lot of people were scared of him, and he was looking for us. So one day we coming out the Magnolia Project riding our bikes, heading home, and Sterling coming up the street. And then back then we had a little 22 pistols. So Sterling passed us and we stopped and he stopped. And we just was looking at each other. And he was like, who that is? We were like, well, who that is? And he was like, this Sterling was like, oh, this Lil Gangsta and this Mosquito. He was like, oh yeah, I heard y'all shot my boy. And was like, yeah, you tried to rob my boy. So we talked, but then we went our separate ways. And in 93, we met back up in jail, and we all actually wound up forming the Hot Boy clique in 1994.
Okay. And the Hot Boyz was you, Dooney, Sterling, and Mosquito.
Well, it was more than that, but everybody started going to jail, started hanging out other places like Stone, the big homie Stone. He was still in the project, but he was more like laid back, get to work, put it out in the project, and he always was laid back. So you would always see me doing the Sterling Mosquito. So that's why it was the four of us. But Stone was still there. You had Disco, you had Hank, Derek, Chill Will. You had a few Blabber. You had a few good men that was still with us, but the four of us hung together every day.
Okay, and out of those four, you're the only person that's still alive.
Correct. Yeah.
How did the other three die?
Okay. The first one to die was Mosquito. He had went in the Calio Project. All right, one of their friends was killed, and they felt that it was Mosquito, Sterling, myself that had to do it. And Mosquito went back there thinking it was all good, and they shot him up like 20-something times. So I got a phone call, and I would talk to them on the payphone. So I was like, is he dead? They was like, man, I don't know. So they'll pass the phone. They kept passing the phone to each other. And I went back there to Cali. When I went back there, he was laying in the driveway on his back, hit up, and clearly he dead. So I was like, oh, they want to play these crackhead games. So from there, that's how the war kicked off between the Magnolia and the Calio Project. They had killed him. Then the second person to get killed was Sterling. Him and I were in we had went downtown. We had went to go on Canal Street to Foot Locker. And we had went to Iberville Project to holler at one of the guys he knew. And as we stand up talking, this guy walk up, start coming up the street, putting a handkerchief around his face. And this girl was like, y'all better run, that boy got a gun. So me and Sterling look at each other, and I just took off running, and he ran behind me the same way I went, and I heard the shots. I ran through the cut, came back around, and he had shot Sterling in the back of his head 7 times. And, you know, Dooney was killed in 2000. I was in prison, and he had a little turf war, whereas he was in a project, and he didn't want the young boys that was living in the project to sell in a certain courtyard. So the little young boy came out one day, shot, hit him in the side, and he died of internal bleeding.
So you were actually there when Sterling got killed.
Right.
How did that affect you? This is one of your best friends, and you basically just saw him die right in front of you.
Right. I mean, it was shocking because I thought we were untouchable. I mean, like I said, New Orleans have killers all over the city. But I just thought that the 4 of us was like, man, it was an awesome force, you know? And for Sterling, and he older than I am, and you know, to see my big bro laying on his ground, and at the time he still was like, you know, gasping for air, and I was like, man, and he, you know, it was turn up season from there.